Detroit Lions fans, we are finally back with another video, and you can get comfortable for this one because I'm talking about my early expectations for the Detroit Lions defense in the 2023-24 season. We're going to start off with the defensive line because I think that's an area that can improve, and overall, starting into the process, I thought we were going to go a little heavier in the draft, in free agency, but the fact that we didn't add another edge, because there were some guys I was looking at, and some guys still out there that could potentially get added to this team, and we all know the names by this point: Leonard Floyd, Yannick Ngakoue, all of those guys. But I do think we're kind of solid. Now, Aiden Hutchinson, a guy who I saw could have easily competed with Sauce Gardner for that Defensive Rookie of the Year award. I liked a lot of things I saw out of him, and I was just watching Detroit Lions film. He popped off my screen. I couldn't ignore him. Now, initially going into the process, I didn't go into watching Detroit Lions film saying, let me click on Aiden Hutchinson and I want to make a video about him. That's not how that went down, but I'm watching him. Flying off the football, pursuit levels crazy. Stop the run, rush the passer, do everything you want to see. And honestly, in my opinion, I'm kind of surprised that how do you take Trayvon Walker over Aiden Hudson? He's right in your face. I don't see too many flaws in his game, especially at this point, even knowing that he's going to get better. Trayvon Walker is a freak, in respect to him in Jacksonville, but I just think Aiden Hutchinson is a different type of monster. Now, let's go with the interior. Alim McNeil, Isaiah Buggs, two guys who I think are pretty solid. Didn't get Jalen Carter. We didn't take that avenue. Didn't get Tyree Wilson. Didn't take that avenue as well. And what that kind of told me is we're believing that Romeo Okwara, who's had some injury history, but he's also had a very good stretch of games. He's put a good season together for the Detroit Lions. So I'm getting that feeling that they're kind of expecting him to come back off the injury and do some of that same stuff now. I'm getting the feeling, and I can just kind of guess that he's really healthy up to this point, because we didn't go out our way to try to add another edge beside Aiden Hudson. We re-signed John Kaminsky. So I'm feeling like if they're good, then I could kind of say I'm good with what we have off the edge. Now, James Houston is the wild card. That's another guy who I think is going to take another major step. Did a film breakdown on him as well, and it's just been. Now, right now, I don't think he's great against the run. I don't think he's even good against the run, to be quite honest with you. But what he can offer you is he's a special pass rusher. Him and Aiden Hutchinson coming off both edges, that's a lot of teams don't want to see that. And I think the Kansas City Chiefs bringing in Jawan Taylor, who previously played right tackle, I think you're paying him to play your left tackle. You gonna have some problems off the edge with these two guys coming after you, Okwara as well. Now, I think Broderick Martin has to. And I mean has to. I think he has to develop pretty quickly for this team, for this defense, because the interior was kind of a question mark for me, honestly. I do think Alim McNeil is a pretty solid player. I do think Isaiah Buggs is a pretty solid player. But when it comes to stopping the run, and I want to know what you guys think as well, was it more a defensive line thing, or was it a linebacker thing? And that's my next position I'm going to get into. I love the linebacker core, and I love the state of it. Derek Barnes, I think he can still crack the rotation even with these three guys in front of him. Malcolm Rodriguez, I'm going to give you a little thing about Malcolm Rodriguez and how I found him. I didn't find him on the Detroit Lions. I found him on a random Saturday evening. I'm watching college football, and I click on Oklahoma State, and I see this guy who's playing linebacker, but he's like a linebacker safety hybrid. That's what he was in college. And he's just everywhere. I think he had about 16 tackles that game, was just flying around. I can't really remember who they were playing, but I said, okay. And to see him go in the 6th round, now see, that was never what I anticipated for a guy like Malcolm Rodriguez. And I understand he's an undersized linebacker, not really quick enough to be a safety, not really big enough to be a true linebacker, but he's showing you he can fight with those dogs in the front seven, and he shined at linebacker last year. Now, who's going to be the odd man out? We bring Jack Campbell in. I think Jack Campbell is the best linebacker on this team. I can say that with a straight face, and I don't really have any pushback from myself about saying that. I feel comfortable in saying that because Alex Anzalone, I think he's a really athletic linebacker. I think he has range, can run sideline to sideline. But sometimes his leverage, sometimes his read steps, sometimes his keys and his eyes get him in bad positions at that linebacker position. And I felt like too often I saw him playing too fast. I saw him out of position quite a bit. But I don't think Jack Campbell's that. And I think with the two fighting off of each other, iron sharpening iron, I think they'll make each other better. I think Jack Campbell, with the way that he plays, and he doesn't play slow, but he's really instinctive and he plays the right speed. You can't be too fast and you can't be too slow when you're playing linebacker. You just gotta flow and know. Kind of that same thing. And I say that with Fred Warner, not comparing him to Fred Warner, but thinking about the best linebackers in the game. They don't just fly off the ball. They're reading it, they see it, then they go. Then he looks like a heat-seeking missile. If the play is flowing away from him, then he's a heat-seeking missile. But if he gets flow directly at him, inside hard flow, he's not just flying downhill, getting out of a gap, letting a guard get hands on him. And even Jack Campbell with that frame, I do think he has what a lot of linebackers don't have in today's game, the ability to shed blocks at quite a high level, and even not even shedding blocks. Who really is going to just block Jack Campbell every play effectively? I don't know. Now, I'm thinking about Malcolm Rodriguez, and I really don't want to see him slow down in his development. I do think he gets a lot of reps on his team, but how often are all three of these linebackers going to be on the field? So it's kind of a difficult place to be in, but you do have great depth. You do have, I can say, at least 4 great linebackers because I like Barnes, Rodriguez, Anzalone, and Campbell. So I would feel good, and I think it's all about competition. Who's going to win it out? Now, Alex Anzalone, his spot's not guaranteed to start. And you say that and you say, what am I thinking? Just because you paid him 3 years, $18 million, I think the linebackers in this room are good enough to kind of take his spot if we get into a 2 linebacker look with 5 defensive backs on the field. Now, that's going to get me into that. And we can see right here, CJ Gardner-Johnson, he's listed at the cornerback position, but I don't think he's going to actually play nickel for this team. I do think he's going to play that safety role, but it's interesting because Brian Branch on that second team, I don't think that's going to last. I think Brian Branch and CJ Gardner-Johnson will be on the football field at the same time. And it's really, Tracy Walker is a guy who's interesting because what do they want to do? Are we going to run 3 corners or are we going to run 3 safeties? That's kind of the interesting thing and a debate we can have with this video. But I do think Kirby Joseph, Tracy Walker, Melifanu, those guys still have roles. But let me talk about what I would ideally do with this secondary. I'm going to have Sutton on my outside, even though Sutton can also play in the slot. Came from Pittsburgh, and I saw him play a lot in the slot there. But Mosley can be the other guy opposite him. And they may add a veteran corner to this team. Don't be surprised if they do that. But at my safeties, I would probably put CJ Gardner-Johnson at the free. Because seeing what he did for Philadelphia and all of the picks, leading the league in picks, he's just a ball hawk. And it's kind of interesting. We see guys transition from nickel to be able to do that and have the range to get there and make plays on the football. You got to be a good football player to do that. And I think he was kind of undervalued in the market. But at the same time, he doesn't have a large sample size of being able to do that at the safety position. And if I'm putting him at the free, that's going to leave me with Kirby Joseph, can be my strong Tracy Walker. I don't believe in really strong and free anymore. I think the best safety plays, typically what we see with a lot of teams, the old traditional free safety, strong safety. In the older game, we used to see that. It was a big difference in a free safety and a strong safety. But today, I think it's more versatile and it's a lot more free-flowing. A lot of defenses are getting positionless. If you're a good football player, if you can do what you're asked to do in that role, it doesn't matter if you're a quote-unquote free or a strong safety. So I think that's something we have to think about as well when we're talking about this DB room. But I think by the time camp's over, OTAs, training camp, I think Brian Branch will be the starting nickel corner. And nickel, really for him, I would play him at the nickel over any of these guys. And I think that's because of his ability to tackle. When he gets in the open field, when he's filling the run, when he's that outside D-gap defender, he's like a linebacker. And I think that's what a lot of DBs don't have. Kyle Hamilton being that nickel and a plug and play. And I've talked about Kyle Hamilton in just about every video that I've talked about Brian Branch. But I mean, how can you not see the comparison? And think about the impact that he made for the Baltimore Ravens. That's kind of the same impact that we're looking for and that we can get out of Brian Branch. Now, I would say going back to the interior, that's kind of still my question mark. And it's really, can Broderick Martin be that guy? Can he step up? Now, I think John Kaminsky can even kick inside a little bit. He's one of those edges in a bigger frame, can play a sort of 4-eye, can play a 3 a little bit. I think and I want to see what the Aaron Glenn, I want to see the packages that he brings out because we got some big guys. And I mean, it can be really scary and dangerous. Thinking about it, it can possibly be a scenario where we kick Aiden Hutchinson to a 3. We got Romeo Okwara still in there, or we can kick Romeo Okwara in a 3. Now, these are the passing downs, obviously, but we can still have Houston, Okwara, and Hutchinson rushing the passer at the same time. And we'll still be able to stop the run because we still got Jack Campbell in the middle of everything. I think, and I've said it in videos, Jack Campbell's not coming off my football field. And his playing speed makes up for a lot of things. If we're playing zone coverage, his height can take away a lot of that. First off, if you see a 6'4" guy roaming in the hook to curl, can I really make that throw when I have Hutchinson and Houston breathing down my back? Can I really do that? And so it's really a tough situation. And also in man coverage, I do think he can improve in that area. Dan Campbell, listening to him, talked about the same thing. But I don't think you're going to ask him to be in man coverage too much. Maybe he'll cover a flat route in a rare occasion. Maybe he might find himself on a wheel route, things of that nature, option routes by the running back. But I don't think you're asking him to do too much. And if you want a guy to run up your Tampa too, I think that could be Anzalone, Rodriguez. I want to keep Jack Campbell in the middle and let him roam. Now, like I said, I'm really banking on Broderick Martin, and he was the later pick in this draft. He wasn't a Sam Laporta. He wasn't a Jahmyr Gibbs. He wasn't a high pick like these other guys. But looking at the positional need and what we're expecting, do we think McNeil and Buggs can do it by themselves? Do we think they're good enough that we don't really need to rely on our depth as much? I don't know how I feel about that. So I do think with Broderick Martin, his length, his frame, adding to what he can do, can really be a run stopper in this defense. And I do think as far as rushing the passer, can he do it? I think he can. Will we rely on him to do it? I don't think so. Now, that's kind of what I have for this defense. And going to week 1, I'm really interested to see these matchups. I want to see how they get after the passer, which I think they're kind of is their bread and butter right now. I do want to see how they play in the back end. I think you kind of want to rely on letting these corners play and be instinctive and kind of funneling everything into those safeties, letting Brian Branch make a play, letting C.J. Gardner-Johnson make a play. Try to force everything into the safeties. I want to see a lot of 2-high sets. And I think bringing in C.J. Gardner-Johnson, you kind of have that mindset. You want to run a lot of 2-high because the Philadelphia Eagles used them in it. So it's really that same kind of philosophy. Aaron Glenn has a lot of talent on his hands, and how will he put it all together? That's really the big ticket. That's the big question in this thing. But I feel good about this defense, and I think in week 1, it's going to be a really tough game. A really tough game, but a really interesting game with all these guys that we have. And I'm kind of just going off on the defense. Jack Campbell, really that guy I think can easily be the best player here. Other than Aiden Hutchinson, I think he's making a case. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, he's trying to get paid, so he's going to be very special this season. But you got to feel really, really good. And these are my early expectations. I do expect this to be I would say anywhere from 10 to 15 rankish in defense. I don't think you're going to be in the bottom half like last year. And even in the past week 9, like I was talking about that stretch of games, you looked a lot better. You looked a lot better versus Green Bay in that last game to send them boys home. So that I'm gonna leave you with that thought, and I want to know what you guys think in the comments. I know a lot of people are gonna say some things, talk about what they feel about this team, expectations for certain guys. I'm gonna have my eyes on Jack Campbell. I mean, plain and simple, Jack Campbell is my guy in this defense, and I would say my dark horse, who I'm looking for to step up, Broderick Martin. So I have a lot of expectations for Jack Campbell. and I really have a lot of expectations for Broderick Martin, but I'm not 100% sure that he'll get to them. I want him to get to them, and that's why he's kind of my dark horse, my underdog per se on this team. Aiden Hutchinson's gonna be a dog. Okay, double-digit sack season. I'm banking it right now. We can kind of book it. Romeo Okwara, we're expecting him to be healthy. We want to see what the interior can offer us. Are we going to be stout against the run? And Jack Campbell, keeping him a little bit free, letting Alex Anzalone run around, letting Malcolm Rodriguez run around. So I'm going to leave you with that thought. That's going to do it for today. My expectations for the Detroit Lions defense in this upcoming season. Let me know what you think. And as always, thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more Detroit Lions content in the future.